let's staff up a whole team, let's create a project plan, let's create a roadmap. All of that is important. I'm not taking that away from it. But if you are able to prove the value with a live working prototype, then selling the business case further makes it way easier.
Hello and welcome to the Data Culture Podcast. I'm Carsten Bange, founder and CEO, and with me today again, Florian Wiegelmeier, and that tells you it's a Data Festival edition again. We host and interview guests of or speakers of the upcoming Data Festival. And today we have the pleasure of talking to Sidharth Ramachandran, and he is Senior Director for Data and AI at RTL Deutschland, the media company, and he's leading the AI Incubator, and that's what we're going to talk about.
Absolutely. He's both doing AI enablement and AI engineering, which means his team is delivering actually AI solutions. But we more talked about actually the enablement part, because we thought it would be super interesting to figure out how are they doing training, how are they doing enablement, how are they doing the education, and how are they dealing with some kind of presentiments maybe, and also stuff where people don't disagree like right away that AI might be the right solution. So also resolving some of the conflicts. But with that, I think we can jump right away into the discussion, Carsten. Hi, Sidharth. Good to have you here.
Nice to meet you.
Absolutely. Hi, Sidharth. Great to have you at the Data Culture Podcast.
So why don't we start right away with one question? We saw that your role is a Senior Director Data and AI at RTL, and you're leading the GenAI Incubator there. Like, what is your role there? What are your priorities about?
So as I said, I am part of RTL Data. Within RTL Data, we have a unit called as AI Enablement and Engineering, and then I lead the AI Incubator, a team within that. And our role is to basically help bring Gen AI projects much closer to reality in a fast and easy way. So with the whole Gen AI wave and model improvements and stuff like this, there are a lot of ideas that can be proved out very quickly. Also now, even more so with the use of coding agents and stuff like this. So you don't necessarily need a long process of understanding projects, deciding which projects to build and so on. You can very quickly, in 8 to 20 days, that's kind of our SLA, if you will, build out the entire idea as a prototype to really prove to the stakeholder whether it works or not. And at the end, you have something that is actually testable, usable. And so the users also get a sense of, okay, is this what I had imagined? Is this going to work? Is this a lot more effort to make it even better? Or is it like, whoa, it already works. I don't need anything more. I'm done. That's the best case scenario, but that's kind of our role in the AI incubator. And till now, we've actually done a lot of projects, so more in like the hundreds, basically. And not all of them have worked, which is also part of the journey, because you want to get rid of the projects that don't work and not spend too much time on those and focus on the things that really bring value, and then build it out as a proper product with a engineering team, with a backlog and development and so forth.
Excellent. We talk to a lot of companies that try to figure out how to bring AI really into production, because we see these big barriers. Was that a reason why your team has been founded?
Definitely. So I think it started off almost 4 years ago, or maybe let's say 3 years ago, after the whole ChatGPT moment. And we already had a collaboration with Microsoft where we were at the Ignite conference showing what is possible with DALI. How do you integrate it into RTL Plus? And so this was sort of the genesis where like really the project where we said, wow, it's so cool, this thing, and it's so fast. So if you're able to get into this fast mode of working, which was or is not typically the norm. And the idea is that you go through the entire prototyping and value delivery mechanism much faster, instead of relying on, let's staff up a whole team, let's create a project plan, let's create a roadmap. All of that is important. I'm not taking that away from it. But if you are able to prove the value with a live working prototype, then selling the business case further makes it way easier, and you can enter that project with way more confidence than just prototype PowerPoint slides or something like.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Before we dive into how you do that, I noticed RTL Data. Could you talk a little bit more where you are embedded? Is that like a data office, or what is that unit?
Yeah, also a very good question. So RTL Data is like the centralized competency center within RTL. So RTL Data encompasses a lot of activities across the entire data landscape, and also includes audience research, panelists, marketing studies, but also more tech-driven initiatives like a centralized data platform, specific data-driven projects, and then now increasingly AI driven projects and AI competency. So it's really a very strong unit that lives at the heart of RTL, and supports customers and stakeholders across different. So be it marketing, be it content, be it production, post production. So it's sort of, you could say, the central competence center for everything RTL data or data related.
Yeah. How many people are in that center?
I think it is roughly 100 to 150. I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but yeah, that's roughly the size.
Yeah. Excellent.
So when you're saying like that's a bigger competence center for data, the immediate question I'm having is a bit like, how does GenAI, the work with generative AI models, differ from what you did before? Data analytics, business intelligence, maybe machine learning, and so on. Can you lead us a bit through it? And also, like, is there also a nuance between incubator and center of excellence? Maybe put that two questions together.
Yeah. Um, so I think it's very interesting. It's a journey that I have also lived through. So I think in the past we were building machine learning driven products or data analysis driven products that help stakeholders make decisions. So there was a long cycle, maybe over 10 years, where you educated your stakeholders on what machine learning is, what the accuracy of a model is, that the fact that it's never going to be 100% accurate. You kind of build an entire education process around telling them, hey, search results will what is the mean reciprocal rank, for example, for a search result, so explaining what that KPI is and so on. And I now find myself in the situation where your stakeholders have now become way broader than simply what you had before, because earlier you were selling to specific areas within a particular organization which were already data literate. I would say they already had an idea of what the data looks like, what analytics looks like, what some examples of machine learning methods is. And now suddenly you're talking to stakeholders who are more exposed to traditional software engineering and not really data products. And so they have the same expectations of AI as they would of software engineering. Hey, here is a solution. This tool does what it says, and it always does what it says. And this is where it becomes challenging, because with AI driven solutions, it's never the case that it will always work. There is always an inherent sense of probabilistic nature. There is a sense of accuracy that it will never give you 100%. What does hallucination look like? And stuff like this. It's still very helpful, but it is not deterministic software. And so I'm having to re explain this in many of our conversations and get people again used to the fact that, hey, this is not software. It will not always do it, and you need to give feedback. And what does the feedback mechanism look like? How do we use the feedback mechanism to improve the product itself, and so on? So this, I think, has been the biggest change for me in moving from a data driven products landscape to more AI driven projects, and explaining this whole thing. um, to your second part of the question, which is the center of excellence, I think RTL data as a whole is considered the center of excellence. So we don't have a let's say, a subunit, let's say, within that. So be it a competence center on data analytics, data engineering, or AI now, that is sort of RTL data. So I think in a way that's the role that we are playing also. So whenever there is a partner conversation to be had or a new tooling to be introduced, we are of course consulted in the process so that we can bring our expert opinion and help stakeholders in making that decision, but also in the process of introducing this in the organization through means of education, through means of training, and things like this. So yeah, I guess we play the role of center of excellence. We just don't officially call ourselves.
I might have like one additional question on the differences which you talked about so well, like about the deterministic parts of software and the probabilistic part of AI, so to speak. Do you maybe have an example for that, which makes it a bit more tangible? How does that translate to the real world of media business, so to speak?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have a lot of examples, but there is, for example, the way you edit a particular video, right? So there is a certain style, there is a certain creative flair that you bring, which can also be done through agentic processes or assisted with agent-driven processes. Like so, when you cut a trailer, for example, there is certain elements that you are looking for when you cut a trailer. And these are naturally or is naturally a creative process, right? So there is somebody looking at it, trying to understand the story, trying to put all of this together. And naturally, this does not lend itself very nicely to software because there is a creative person that's involved there, and they're more like saying, hey, this is kind of my job. How am I supposed to automate this? And I think the role of AI here is not to really automate, but to really assist. And that means that you provide this editor or this creative person with a list of suggestions based on their criteria, based on certain guidelines, based on previous episodes that have had trailers generated and stuff like this. And this will not always be the same because the criteria themselves are not a rigid set of rules. So in deterministic software, you could say, hey, always give me a scene where there are two people talking, and always give me a scene where there is an explosion, and so on. So this is some deterministic way to kind of assist. But when you're talking about doing this in an AI driven way, is the definition of an explosion the same each time? No. If there are two people talking, but 10 people in the background, is that still people talking to each other? These are places where it's not so hard and it's not so easy to distinguish it. And this is also where it's not so easy for an AI also to make this judgment. And so, will you get the same set of suggested clips each time when you're trying to cut a trailer for a particular video? No, the types of clips that you see will differ each time. And so this is the whole journey that I think we need to go through, that software is no longer deterministic, but is probabilistic. And what does that mean?
Absolutely. Now, let's dive into, let's say, your daily job, yeah, to bring AI use cases fast into production. I think is super relevant and interesting topic. So, what's the secret sauce? What are the topics you are focusing on? So, what are you doing? But also, yeah, where do you think are the success factors?
I think there's so as a media company, what I really love about working at RTL is the fact that I get to work on so many use cases. So it's not just video editing, which we have been really focusing on, but also creation of texts, also creation of marketing images, but also we have our own sales house. So it's a lot about CRM automation and things like this. So the wide variety of applications of our use cases, and a lot of it, we're not saying so the AI incubator is not the only one that is doing it. There are also several colleagues that we work with directly and enable in various parts of the organization to adopt AI and stuff like this. So my day to day kind of, I would say, has two main components. On the first hand is more, how I put it, more as evangelizing or training or AI diffusion. So really talking to people trying to help them understand what AI is, which tool kind of fits which use case. What is the use case? Is it actually possible to do it or not? And so, really opening their minds, doing a bunch of trainings, doing some workshops, and really getting everybody on the same page in terms of what language do you use when you're talking about AI? What are the tools that we have access to? How do you use these tools? And what can you do yourself? And where do you need, let's say, more specialist help for a dedicated solution or something like this? So, and that brings me to the second part, which is I feel that there are a lot of things that people can really do themselves. So, for example, do you need to build a custom chatbot for each and every use case? Probably not. You can go into ChatGPT, build your own custom GPT today if you know how to do it or if you're aware of it. So, that's the first part where I help make we enable people themselves to do it, right? Because this is the beauty of AI, because now everybody can kind of do it themselves. But on the other hand, when you talk about more permanent like solutions or solutions that are a bit larger and extend beyond a team and comprise of multiple aspects of a workflow, then things start becoming a bit more complex. For example, if you consider a very typical data use case where you want to build a automated data analyst, right? It's something that we have been used to doing. You write SQL query, you build some visualizations and so on. But the key things here is you need to have this AI analyst connected to all of your data sources. It not just your data sources, be it in BigQuery or wherever they live, it also needs to be connected to with the right permissions. So not everybody should have access to all tables because it might have sensitive data. The context for this information might lie or the documentation, right? So what do the different columns look like? What do they mean? That might lie in a completely different system, be it Confluence or any other knowledge repository that you're doing. And now expecting a stakeholder to build an AI analyst themselves is probably a touch too far. And this is sort of where the incubator comes in, which is the second part of my job, which is to really conceptualize these solutions and to build it in a more rigorous fashion where we are respecting rights, privileges, building the necessary connectors, and so on. So this is what the AI incubator and the surrounding teams around that really support, which is to say, hey, some solutions, although they are AI-driven solutions, they're not things that each and every team can build themselves, and that's what we build for them and kind of build it in a proper way and stuff like that. So this, I think, is the two parts of kind of my role as leading the AI incubator.
You already talked a bit about the education part, or actually quite a bit. Why do you think is that so critical? Why is it so important as part of your journey? I mean, you could also just go there and say, "We are the AI experts. We're gonna build that and bring it to the company." Because these days we see like a lot of companies that rather try to enable their people out there, and obviously there is something behind that.
Yeah.
What's your reason to do it that way?
Um, I think that the reason for me it's really exciting is because I believe that AI can act as a sort of equalizer to some extent. And it is like a general purpose technology. That means that, yes, as someone with a background in data science and having built models before, we understand a lot more about how these models are trained and how they behave. So that's kind of where our expertise comes in. But as a consumer facing technology, we are at a place where each and every person can enable themselves to do so much more than what they are doing now. They can automate various aspects of their work themselves without needing a tech team and a software engineer and a data engineer to build a complex pipeline and so on. An easy way I explain it is pretty much everybody is now familiar with office tools, right? So you kind of know how to use Excel, you kind of know how to write a PowerPoint presentation and so on. And when you make a Word document, there are some Word documents that you use only to share within your team or with your manager. And then there are some Word documents where you put a lot more effort into, and this is meant for publication, like either as a blog post or is a press release by a company and so on. I believe we are in entering a similar era of software solutions just like Word documents. So there are some software solutions, small apps or helper tools that you use just for yourself or just within your small team. It solves your small problem, and that's it, right? It doesn't need to be super production ready. It doesn't need to scale to 1 million users and stuff like this. So a Word document is similar to an app. It works for you and for your team. Great. But there are some apps that you really want more people to use and stuff like this. And there you do need good software engineering practices and stuff like this, which is where teams like us come in. But the fact that we want to enable you to build these small tools yourself, be it a custom GPT or be it an agent or things like this, what works for you in the limited context already helps you directly. This is where I think that the real power of AI is, when everybody in the organization is enabled to do this themselves. Maybe there is obviously, like I said, grades of doing it. Like some Word documents you just write for yourself, some Word documents you write for your boss, and some Word documents or presentations you create so you can go to a conference and talk about it. In the same way, there will be some tools or agents that you will build for yourself, some tools or agents that you will build for your team or for your boss or for a small set of people, and then some will really be company wide, which needs to be built properly. But the things that you're doing for yourself, you can easily do it today, given the set of tools and technology that we have. And this is why I think it's important to enable everybody, because they are the ones with the domain experts. I am not a video editor. I don't know what a good trailer looks like. This is something that's in the minds of somebody who does this role. And if I can enable them to help themselves, that's like the productivity booster. That's like the awesome feeling that they get, because they are able to do their job much better than me helping them build some solution or something like this. I mean, there is a place for that, but if you're able to help yourself, that's like awesome. And it gives you such a nice feeling, because you're like, hi, I learned something new, I built something cool, and now I'm able to do so much.
In terms of enablement, what did you found were the most effective means, like certain maybe trainings or e-learning, or yeah, how do you run the enablement? But most importantly, what do you think works best?
I think what works best for me is, so we've done the whole bit, right? So we started off with like trainings, like prompting and all these kind of things, like maybe 2-3 years ago. That was more like a large round. So just get people introduced to the idea of what AI is, what does a prompt look like, give them some basics, some guardrails and stuff like this. But the thing that I think really stands out for me is doing small group workshops directly with domain experts to solve problems in their domain. So a typical way I kind of do this is, let's say you are talking to fiction writers, right? So you go and you have a small group of 4 to 5 fiction writers. They are the ones who are writing dialogues, writing scenes for various episodes and stuff like this. And you ask them, how do you do your job? What is the biggest bottleneck today in doing your job? And then they explain to you what are the annoying parts of their job, because the parts of the job that they really like, I think they really like. You want to do it, that's something that brings you joy. But there are aspects of everybody's job that you don't like so much. They're more like admin tasks, maybe a bit annoying and stuff like this. Like, I'm sure nobody likes to format stuff in a Word document, right? Like, you want to write the ideas that go into the document, but should you be focusing on formatting? Or maybe you need to do a lot of Google research to find out about a particular topic. So we take these annoying bits as use cases and show them right there in the workshop how how you could use a bunch of these things to make that part easier, right? And I think this serves two purposes. One, it grounds it in their context, because it starts with their workflow, with their domain, and they can also see the output of such a tool and tell you whether it is actually good or it's bullshit, right? So because this is the aspect which also they need to learn. AI is not some magic tool. A lot of the results that it produces is so-called AI slop. And so so as a domain expert, you're able to tell when something actually looks good or reads good and something is slop. So they also get this sense of, hey, what can do, what it cannot do, and things like this. That's the first part. So you really ground it in their lives, in their domain. And the second part is, it also shows them that, hey, AI is not here to replace me, or, I am still so valuable in this entire process. And I am getting rid of these annoying bits so that I can focus on the things that I really enjoy doing. So it makes the whole experience like a co-working session. So you are co-working with an AI colleague or something like this, and you leave the workshop feeling a lot more positive. You leave the workshop with a sense of wow, because your mind has opened up to possibilities. Like the best example I heard at the end of such a workshop was saying, hey, I can now imagine that if I had 100 colleagues with me, or 100 interns working with me, what more could I do? So and that statement is something that somebody told me at the end of a workshop. And this really opens up your mind to the possibilities. And that's the kind of outcome you want, and not more on the other side where you're maybe a bit more scared, a bit worried, and stuff like this. So this is very important, because people realize that AI is not a golden bullet or something like that. It is actually many times pretty crap in terms of output. But that's where the human element comes in, and improvement and stuff like that. So this for me is like what I have always enjoyed doing.
That's pretty interesting because I mean, so far we can tell maybe that we at Berkshire also build with AI, and a use case driven approach is something that really sticks with a lot of people, and that works pretty well because you can see easily like how people adopt it. You can go step by step and iteratively. And I like particularly that is that it also gives the people the chance to figure out what their role will be in a world where AI is there. Because the first time you get into contact with that and you see the media, oh, AI is killing all the white collar jobs, it's like it feels super hard. And then you kind of find a way like, oh, okay, now I see where my domain expertise is playing a role finally, right?
Absolutely right. I mean, I think these job loss fears are really dominating the headlines today. Like, and I don't think they're wrong. I think we should not dismiss them. There is genuine fear. I mean, I also experience it every day, because my job was more like writing code or something like this before, and a lot of the agents can do a lot more of that now. So should I be scared? I think that's a genuine worry. But I think as humanity, we've always been super creative, right? Like we as a species have evolved so much, starting from just fire to steel, to the industrial revolution, and then to internet, and stuff like this. We are a super creative species, and we always find something new using technology. So the perfect example that I always talk about is apps like ride sharing apps like Uber and stuff like this could not have existed if you didn't have smartphones and the internet um, on in everyone's fingers. And that's something that you could say, hey, is hurting the lives of existing taxi drivers and stuff like this. And that's true. So this is where government policy and regulation comes into being. But the fact that anybody sitting right now in my home can order a cab was mind blowing. I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or something like this. And I think that AI also should be seen as a tool that will lead us to more cool things. I always struggle to convey this sense of imagination. I myself, I'm struggle to imagine what is the new thing that enables AI. But I think we've seen in industrial revolution, like you started industrial revolution in factories, but then there were cars, and then there were railways, and you know no, at that time when you just saw the first steam engine working, could you imagine that one day this would, I don't know, lead to the T model or something? I don't know if I was there, could I imagine that? Because our imagination is also limited very often. And that's kind of what I always encourage people to imagine. What more would you do with this? What more can you do with this? And somehow convey that sense of positivity, human creativity, rather than focus on the negatives. I think the negatives are important, and I think they should be um, reflected on for sure. But yeah, where do you spend your energy? I think that's what I'm always uh, conveying to people. Saying, hey, let's be positive. Let's adopt this. Let's see where it goes. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And for sure, we will see again like a new roles emerging. Yeah, so people will be doing new things. One role I spoke lately about was the agent supervisor. So as as long as we want humans in the loop, we definitely need more of those. Just one example. Let's look a little bit also on the other side of your what you said you are doing. You said it's enablement, and we talked about that, but it's also about evangelizing, and that I think is also super interesting. You already mentioned a few aspects, I think, like for example, make it relevant. Yeah, like your example of the day-to-day work. But maybe you can share also a few other success factors again. Yeah, so how do we evangelize most effectively in your organization at RTL?
So I think it's so first of all, it's the training and the education piece. I think that's the most important because people then buy into it. The second aspect of it is also showing something rather than talking about it. So this is where the idea of the incubator came in because um, in typical large organizations, there are a lot of pulls and tugs because different people have different priorities and so on. So the ability to kind of already show the solution and like so you hear an idea and then in a week the follow-up meeting you already have something to show is kind of mind-blowing for a lot of people because they can already touch and experience the solution and they're able to tell you even there, okay, that doesn't work, or no, I thought it would work this way. So you already get awesome feedback which you didn't have if you were still in the PowerPoint slide. And there are a lot of requirements that are not explicitly stated in anything. They're just in the minds of the people. They say, hey, I want a solution that does X, Y, and Z. But actually, they also want A, B, and C. But they themselves didn't know it. They thought it was obvious. And then they see the solution live. And then they say, hey, but why does it not do A? And we're like, oh, but you didn't tell us that. And then the answer is, oh, but I thought that was obvious. So, it also having something there and kind of showing that and asking them to try it already makes it obvious that there are communication gaps. And it brings out these communication gaps way faster and quicker, which I think is also a large part of building any solution. So I think that's another thing that I really also found that this incubator style working is just way faster and easier.
Absolutely. Um, so thanks for leading us through like our your work at RTL and what you're doing around the incubator. One open topic, of course, is we will have you as a speaker at the Data Festival in mid-June in Munich, and we would obviously love to know what will you talk about. Can you give us a little teaser about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think the journey of AI adoption is kind of what we're talking about, but I will maybe go a bit more deep in that, present some funny aspects or criterias of it. So I imagine it to be a more humorous discussion because there are so many learnings that we've had in the last 3 years where you would expect something and then the reality is something else because the other the stakeholders or the person on the other side has super unrealistic expectations of AI, or think that why isn't this already happening when actually there is a lot that needs to happen before that goes there. There is also a lot of hype around this. So both on the positive side and the negative side, on the one hand, overselling what AI can and cannot do. On the other side, also creating, as we discussed, job loss fears and stuff like this, where people are reluctant to share or engage because they're actually actively pushing back against the use of AI in one or the other aspects and things like this. So I think the talk there will be way more humorous, talking about some of our instances of things that worked, also of things that didn't work, and some simple things which, let's say, are not so obvious.
That sounds great. And here's the secret, Siddharth. You have been recommended to us, and someone said this. your talk is really funny. So I'm really looking forward to it. This will be June 16th and 17th. See you there, the latest. Thanks for sharing all your insights today. And I'm looking forward to meeting you in person in Munich at the Data Festival.
Yeah, looking forward to it myself too.
See you there. Take care.